Registered psychotherapists and clinical supervisors and trainers at El Piso Counseling Services. Happy to have you join us. We're also happy to have Enimwa Enimado join us via Zoom. Neems, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Hi, Inshira. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And we're very happy to have you. We'll also be joined in a moment by Aaron Esiedu Entry. He's a law student and he has a great interest in family issues. He's the founder of the Law Lab. He also joining us. And Aaron, if you're on, let's hear you. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Now I'm even more happier. Everyone we want on this conversation is here. But feel free to join us if you have some thoughts. Note down the telephone number and give us a call and make a short contribution or ask a question of our guest in the studio and on Zoom. I will come to you, Elvis and Ruth, in a moment. But I want to start, first of all, with Enimwa. Enimwa, now, why did you answer that if a man is in a relationship and the woman earns more, he should still pull his weight?
Are you asking me what my answer is to that? Because I haven't commented on that.
What's your answer to that? Sorry, I'm mistaking you for another answer I got.
Okay.
So
what's the question?
The question is that if say, for example, you earn more than your partner, would you be okay to carry the heavier load where finances are concerned?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Is that something that you think other women share? Is it a viewpoint that other women share? And why do you think that it's not something that may be very popular among our women?
I mean, I think definitely not necessarily. Not a lot of women, might share in that. But I think that when you are a woman who has worked hard to earn a certain amount of money, you become accustomed to a certain lifestyle. I was taught that I shouldn't expect anybody else to pay for my lifestyle. And so if there are certain things that I want that are perhaps extravagant or not affordable, according to a certain income brackets, then I would not expect to put that kind of pressure on my partner, because these are things that, I want or things that I can afford. I don't believe in other people funding your soft life. I don't believe in other people, sacrificing their goals and dreams to make you comfortable. I do believe in shared responsibility, definitely, shared household bills, taking care of the kids and all of that. But I also believe in equity, so if you're earning 2 CDs and I'm earning 8 CDs, and we have a bill of 6 CDs, it makes sense that I contribute more because I have more. And I think that if the shoe was on the other foot, that's what we would expect from men. It's funny how society is moving forward and women are fighting for equality and equity in so many different ways. But when it comes to the home front, we still want to act as if we are disadvantaged. And I think that sometimes we like to think like 100 years back to the times when our grandmothers and our great-grandmothers were not economically advantaged. They were not working. They were at home. They were raising children. It was the men who were working and going to the farm, and so there was a sort of hoarding mentality, because if you're not the earner, then whatever you're given, you keep, and you're keeping it against the day when your husband is not there anymore. And there weren't rules and laws and policies that protected women in terms of inheritance or in terms of, shared interest when it came to children and stuff. But so much of that has changed. And I find it very interesting that the mindset of women has not changed accordingly with the times.
So what do you make of the phrase, what's yours is ours, what's mine is mine, in the context of relationships?
I don't agree with it. I understand it in terms of women wanting to protect themselves. And I do think that there are perhaps more legal ways to protect, yourself when you enter into a marriage or a relationship. There are prenups, of course, there's the making of wills. One thing I would say is that one of the great fears of women is your husband dies and you find out he has 5 other children, who are coming to come and inherit what you and your husband have worked for. So you have to deal with the pain of the the infidelity and then deal with the pain of somebody else's children, coming to, there are things like that, which may drive women to say, okay, what's yours is ours and what's mine. It's a protection thing, but I also think that there are legal frameworks that protect us women, and the laws have changed a lot in Shira. There was a time when your husband died, Charlie, it's the end of the world, because his family will come and take the stuff, you'll be thrown out. There was the widowhood rights. A lot of those things don't exist as much anymore. So whatever your fears are, put them on paper. Whatever your shared assets are, see a lawyer, have those documents drawn up. If there are any children that come about, extramaritally, this is the portion of what they'll inherit from their father's estate, protect your children's inheritance. If you put things like that in place, I feel like it's a burden that you don't have to carry of, I don't want to bring what is mine to the table. And I think it's also very selfish because depending on the kind of relationship that you're in, this man may be working hard, giving you his heart, doing his best, and then you don't want to contribute because of what? Fear, selfishness, or some really, I don't want to say stupid because it's morning radio, but I feel like I've said it, but because of, some sort of thing that has come about where women feel like we don't have to contribute as much. All we bring to the table is our bodies or just cooking and cleaning or washing. Those times have passed, and I think it's time for women to be empowered and bring more to the table so that there's more on the table, so that what is on the table can be multiplied for the good of the whole family within legal frameworks which protects women and their children.
Wonderful. Thanks very much. That's a solid first submission. Aaron, I want to ask you, is this mindset a real thing or an unfair stereotype making it very, very unfair towards women?
Please, can you hear me?
Yes, you're live and loud.
Thank you very much, and I must commend Enimwa. I actually enjoyed her submission, and my regards to those in the studio. But you see, Insha, we should put issues in a very, very good context. Why are we even here? It is because that at the beginning of the said presupposed relationship, which has led to this question, we did not address certain fundamental issues. As to how we even entered into the relationship is quite problematic, because if we had entered on a very good premise, understanding ourselves clearly, setting out, considering our community.
So technology is trying to misbehave. Aaron, hello, 121212. Are you there? All right, we're going to try and go back to Aaron. I'll come in studio quickly, and I'm going to come to Ruth. Did we just have Aaron?
Even a problem.
Okay, Aaron, we're struggling. I think there's a bit of a buffer in the connection.
Hello, can you hear me?
Good. Now we can hear you. So,
Okay.
So you need to backtrack a little bit to the point where you say,
okay. Insha, all that I'm saying is that why we are even having this communication is because beginning with the relationship, we did not get certain things right. One, entering into a relationship with someone, you must consider a lot of things. What the society even perceive, or where the person is coming from, how the person even appreciates things, and how we can communicate to each other in a more sincere manner. If we got all those things very right, I am sure we wouldn't be at the point of questioning this, because what is the point that I receive or have a lot of money than my partner, being it a female or a male, being it a female or a male. It shouldn't even be a problem to even question whether you should contribute more or not. I think that the problem emanates from the premise we enter into, the premise on which we enter into a relationship. When we get that right, this conversation will not even erupt.
Okay, Aaron, I've had the opportunity to attend a few traditional marriage ceremonies, and I've heard the three phrases at different times. Ukoi, unya de pa fabrefie, ekaba ye bema ne dia. Edro nyun, mema ne numedro nyun. Etu tua esibema ne bo. Now, while I understand this may be a word to the man to say you are ultimately responsible for the progress, the development of this family and this precious daughter of ours that you're entering into a marriage with, could this be interpreted as saying that I'm going into this marriage and I have to be transactional and I have to post a profit and that profit has to be for me and my family?
Okay, so Insha, then again comes to my point on having to appreciate the community the person is coming from and amongst others. Even in law, I don't want to be legal this morning. Just as Enimwa said, our laws has even transformed over the years, capturing what our societies were thinking about. In the 1950s, the properties of a man, even when it was done together with a wife, does not belong to the wife. It has transformed to a point. But you see, Isha, these proverbs you are hearing or you've been hearing does not necessarily give a literal interpretation that you are putting on. Say, one of the proverbs you gave, that etuotua etrebemabo. Why don't we say that we should go and pick a gun and put it on the chest of the man? It gives you a very wide interpretation that it depends on how you want to view it. If the ultimate responsibility lies on the man, then it behoves on the man to be able to have that sincere conversation with the woman he is entering into a relationship with, so that sincerity can drive both of them in contributing for one not to even feel that he or she is being used. And I believe that it is the interpretation we put on some of these proverbs and our line of understanding, how we think, is what contributes to all these controversies around the question you are asking me.
Okay. I'm glad that so far it sounds as though this is just a stereotype and it doesn't prevail. But Ruth, I want to come to you as one half of the whole Bajabi establishment. And I want to, ask, you've been married for over 30 years, 34 if I'm not mistaken.
32 years.
32 years, okay. And you've, in your line of work, counseled several couples. Yeah. You've heard couples' challenges. What are some of the things that you find driving a wedge between couples? Is it financial? Is it infidelity? Is it men thinking that they have to keep on giving even when they're empty?
Good question. Thanks for having us again. It's a privilege to be here. Marriage, it's a wonderful institution. I love being married. Like I said, been married for 32 years. I will start off with, what is marriage? Are we talking about relationship? I'm dating, so I'm supporting my partner, or are we talking about now I am married, I'm committed to you? So there's a difference. I'm hearing that in modern days, or young people these days, the girls are expecting more from the men, even in the dating situation. I remember when I was young, my mom told me never to accept anything from a man unless I'm married to them. Expectations comes with responsibilities as well. So, for me, I'm speaking only in the context of marriage. Mm-hmm. So my question is, what is marriage? Why am I coming into the marriage? Am I coming in so that I can receive something, or am I coming in so I can be joined and create something with my husband? What does the Bible say? I mean, Ghana is predominantly a Christian Muslim country, so we believe in faith. Mm-hmm. So I will go to, what was the first institution of marriage? Adam and Eve. What was Adam's given responsibility? Was to provide, was to take care of. So I'm a traditionalist in the sense that I do believe that Men are to take care and to provide, and the woman, as ascribed in the Bible, is to be a support to the man. So traditionally, if we bring it here in this country, as has already been said, there's been traditions, there's cultures intertwined into the marriage. As the world increases and develops and evolves, things are changing. So are we changing those traditional norms, or are we keeping the traditional norms but expecting to add the new stuff on top? You ask the question, what are we seeing in marriage? What are the issues? Everything. From finances to communication to blended families. Everything you can think of can be a problem in a marriage. It just depends on how and what is going on in the relationship that will generate the problem. But anything can be a problem. But what are the top key areas? Usually is finance, conflict resolution, and communication. Those are big things. Additionally is blended families, meaning either I'm coming in with a child into the marriage, or my husband is coming in with a child, and how do we blend the two? I think in the Ghanaian context, or the Ghanaian couples or African couples that we tend to work with, one of the three key areas. One, finances. Two is blended families. Three is now it's gone out of my head. It's in-laws.
Okay.
Issues with in-laws.
Okay.
Issues with in-laws and building something. So because we're in Canada, oftentimes the problem is, I've just discovered my husband has built a house and I didn't even know about it. Or my wife has built a house and I didn't know about it. Those are some of the key areas that we encounter in North America.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned that last part of the things that come up, and I want to share this story with you, Elvis, before you come in. So let's say Kwame and Akosia got married, young, ambitious, full of dreams and promises. You know, they expected this to be the beginning of a beautiful love story, and now they needed to find a place to live. Akosia was insistent on living in this very cozy 2-bedroom apartment in a very quiet neighborhood, slightly beyond their budget, but their eyes were very, they were excited when they saw it. And of course, Kwame, wanting to make her happy, agreed despite the cost. After all, he thought love is sacrifice, so I'm going to try, and marriage has to be about compromise. So they signed the lease, and so he thought. For 6 years, Kwame faithfully paid rent, sometimes falling on friends to borrow money to meet the deadline to pay the rent. He often joked with his friends about, Charlie, love could be so expensive, and this thing, even though he loves his wife, this is really killing him, it's draining him, he's always stressed because he needs to make enough to take care of all the other bills and still pay this rent, which was way. One quiet Sunday afternoon, Kwame was looking for a utility bill in a drawer they both used, and he came across an envelope. It wasn't hidden, but just oddly placed, so curiosity led him to open it. Inside, it was a property ownership agreement for the very house they had been living in. Guess the owner, Akosia. Now, Kwame's hands were trembling, and he calls Akosia over, and in the calmest voice he could muster, says, Akosia, why didn't you tell me you own the house? Akosia didn't blink. She said, because it's mine. Is there any problem? Kwame was like waiting for a joke at the end of that, thinking, but you mean I've been paying you rent for 6 years? And Akosia was like, well, yes. I wasn't forcing you. You wanted us to live here. You agreed to the rent. This is not a fictional story. This is true, and it's not the only example I know of. What do you think makes a person go into a marriage and do what Akosia has done?
Thank you again for having us here. see, let's go back. Premarital therapy, premarital counseling. We keep talking about it. The purpose of doing premarital therapy is to save your marriage before you go in. But sometimes you want to come from the other side, because essentially no one goes to school to learn how to be married. And the marriage is the only institution in the whole wide world that they give you the certificate before you enroll it. For couples going into a relationship, you need to be talking about almost everything, including where you will stay or live after marriage, and roles and responsibilities, financial, look at communication, conflicts, family and friends, spiritual, children and parenting. You need to be talking about these things first before you even go in. The mistakes that we often do is, once we get into the relationship, that is when we start resolving or talking about things. You mentioned something about expectations. People go into relationship with unspoken expectations. They are in their minds. So if things doesn't happen according to how they envision it, then frustrations sets in. The case study, or maybe what you just shared with us for an example, I'm wondering when they were signing a lease, did he not see who the owner of the property? What was the name on it? Who are you paying the rent to? But you see, when such things comes up, then it leaves people wondering, and they will be questioning whether it's time to pack up, or do we talk about this and reconcile, or what do we do? So coming back to the financial issue, because this case study is purely financial also.
It's financial and dishonesty.
If financial and dishonesty, but coming back to this issue right here, premarital sessions will let you know that, number one, let's talk about financial. Where are we going to live? Are we cutting our coat according to our size? If the man is bringing 100, the woman is bringing 900, or vice versa, it is not about me bringing more, so I'm going to be paying more, but it's about the two coming together to be 900 that we know. Let's create a budget to fit whatever bills and expenses, so that we all share together. Why must I exclude financial when I'm all in emotional, I'm all in mentally, physically? We say, and the two shall become one, and that includes financial too.
Wow. Okay. That's a radical position. I mean, I've never thought about it like that. Anymore, have you always thought about it as the two being one, including financial?
So yes, but this case study that you're talking about, sometimes I get the whole, premarital counseling and the counseling and all of that. And of course, I agree with all of that. But, over the years, there's a certain sort of both personal and societal trauma that women have gone through when it comes to the acceptance of infidelity in our society. And it happens so often, and we talk about it so much, that we actually don't maybe take a moment to realize how deeply hurt and how deeply painful it is for a woman to be cheated on. I dare say that a lot of the decisions that women make comes from a place of trying to prevent a certain level of trauma, a certain level of pain from betrayal. So, for example, I'm putting myself in Akosia's shoes and asking myself why I would do this, to a man that I say I love. And as much as, yes, it's dishonest and it's all of those things, there's actually a part of me that can understand. Women are afraid. When we're going into relationships, we are afraid. When we're investing, we are afraid. When we're putting 100% on the table, we are afraid. Because our Ghanaian society has normalized side chicks and baby mamas and men who stay out late and men who are cheating so much that you want to preserve something. When she said, when her husband asked her, like, how are you doing this? And she said, it's mine. It was her way of saying, this is a part of me that I am keeping for myself in case you let me down. And we don't talk about that enough. I think that men don't get enough credit for what they do for the family. I think men are not appreciated enough, yes, for the contributions and the sacrifices that they make. But I also think that men are not chastised enough for the kind of pain that they inflict on their wives and their children when they bring other women into the family system and other children into the family system. So yes, as much as I think that we should go into a marriage 100% transparent, financially, economically, emotionally, and all of those things, women have learned that money won't break your heart. And money won't cheat on you, and money won't meet somebody younger and say, I don't love you anymore. And so there's a part of women that we want to preserve certain things from ourselves. And sometimes a story like this, it sounds very scandalous, but there must be some context. Do you know what I mean? A lot of times when you dig deeper into why a woman has gone from being so open and idealist and happy about her marriage or her relationship, you will realize that there is some unresolved trauma or some unresolved hurt that has not been addressed or that has been glossed over. And so if we really want that 100% transparency and 100% financial this and all of that, then let's go into the nitty-gritty and the details. Do I have access to your phone? You have access to my body, but I don't have your password. And it's not about your password, but it's about what are you hiding? And if you're hiding things, then should I not protect myself? I don't know if what I'm saying is making sense to you.
Well, it is making some very...
We can't discuss...
Go on, Enima.
But we can't discuss transparency and, openness and counseling and all of those things without holding people accountable for the kind of pain that we put each other through. So yes, let's be transparent. If you want to know 100% of what I'm earning as your wife, if you want to know all my assets, if you want to know the money that I've hidden in caves and invested, then I need to know that I am safe with you. I need to know that you're not going to take my money and go and, take other women out. And I know, sometimes we make it seem like, oh, this infidelity thing is such a big thing. It is a big thing to women. There's no, even God said, you shall love the Lord your God and you shall have no other gods beside him. There's a possessiveness and there is a love and a territorialness that comes, when you're a wife who is investing and giving and being transparent. Let's not even talk about the spiritual implications. So if, let's say, I'm a praying wife, and I am fasting and I am doing my akwancha, I'm doing all my things to gather my money, and you are bringing in some woman to come and muddy the waters of our relationship, why are you expecting transparency from me? Or why are you expecting kindness? Why are you expecting that you won't pay for rent when you're living in my house? Do you know what I mean? The Bible says that we should walk worthy of the calling to which we've been called to. So if you want a certain quality of woman, a certain quality of a life, a certain quality of transparency, then you should be worthy of what you're being asked for. Because let not be disingenuous and say, oh, it's as easy for women to make money as it is for men. There's disparity in pay. There's disparity in promotions. Women don't get the big jobs because they'll say, oh, you're going to go off for 9 months and have kids and maternity. When a man is paid 10 cedis per hour, a woman is paid 6 cedis per hour for the same job. So by the time I have built my house and dealt with workers who don't respect, and masons who think that I don't have the authority to be able to be their boss, and I have built my house, and you are coming to live in my house and I love you, but then you feel like, oh, okay, you're going to live in my house, but you're going to hurt me or you're going to despise the sacrifices I have made to become a woman of substance. I mean, can we talk about that as well?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you raised
Can we
this.
talk about that as well?
I'm glad you raise it.
Of what it takes to be, the cost of what it takes a woman to be a woman who comes to the table with something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, last week on my show, I was talking about the soft life and having men, pay for things, and women who are just, relying on their body parts and their beauty, to get things. There's also a kind of woman who is working hard. Who has integrity, who is keeping herself, keeping her body, who is not cheating, who is prayerful. And it's like, must we deal with the same things? Must we deal with certain things? Are you going to be a man?
You brought us to a point I want us to explore further. You talked about men not being chastised enough, and you've just made reference to a discussion you had on your show about soft life. Now, how has public figures, influencers, and co shaped, conversation around gender, money, love, and the responsibility that it comes with in Ghana? In a minute, quickly, then I'll come to Ruth. Anymore.
The whole social media influencers, I think a lot of social media influencers don't have sense. We have taken God out of a lot of things, and we've glorified a lot of foolishness in Shira, and it's a huge mess. There's not a lot of women who are. I'll give you an example. There was a lady who went to my daughter's school about a year or two ago, and she was talking about hard work, and talking about, women must work hard. And my daughter comes to me and she asked me, she's like, okay, so this woman came and talked about women must work hard, but I mean, from the stories I've heard and from what she projects on social media, her working hard is she's using her body and her beauty to date rich men. So why is she coming to tell us to work hard when that's not what she's doing? Do you get what I mean? So when you've lost your integrity in that way, how are you going to tell somebody, Bob? Like, of course, content creators and social media influencers, there are some who are very legit and make a lot of money legitimately. There's also a portion of people who are not making money legitimately, but are asking us to make money legitimately when they don't know how to make money legitimately, which is why I absolutely love President John Mahama. This is just a complete side, whatever, who is asking for declaration of assets. We want to know how you made your money. Don't come and tell us a cock and bull story about, hard work when the only hard work you've ever done is on your back. You, Bob?
Yes, we do. Ruth, stay with us anymore. Ruth, I'm liking where this conversation is going. I mean, are men chastised enough, or are women, trapped in this echo chamber of voices that make them make the wrong decisions in a bid to protect themselves from dangers that sometimes don't exist?
Can I ask a question? My question is, are we saying that men are also not traumatized? Are we saying that men are not being cheated on? Are we saying that men also are not afraid? I don't know. I'm a balanced person, and maybe I might be shot for this, but I don't take. I like I said, I'm very balanced. My thing is that, and I appreciate what Animwa was saying about trauma. Mm-hmm. That's why we believe in therapy so much. Before you go into any marriage, try and make sure that you are whole and that you've taken care of those traumas before you go into a marriage situation. If you haven't taken care of those traumas, they will impact the marriage because they become triggers. There are things that are at the back of your mind, they're in your subconscious, and so, whatever happens, you're reminded of the things that have happened to you, and so that comes back up. And unfortunately, the person that you're married to is impacted and receives a brunt end of the things that they themselves that were not part of. And so I would say, get therapy for yourself, heal. If you've been cheated on, heal before you decide to get married again. Before you decide to get married again, have those conversations. Elvis said that, he couldn't speak enough of premarital. Honestly, we believe so much in premarital therapy as a starting point to any relationship, as a starting point to getting married. Before I get married, I need to ask very critical questions. I need to also have my non-negotiables, right? If I go into marriage and I tell my spouse, these are things that are my expectations. I expect this, I expect this, I expect this. If they don't align with the man's expectations, we're misaligned, we're going to have problems right away. So we need to have those conversations. We need to be very open. Are we open enough to be transparent? We're talking about transparency. Are we open enough to share with our spouse, listen, I had a previous relationship, I was cheated upon, this is an area that is a sore point for me. I'm letting you know, the moment I see that you're cheating or you've cheated on me, I'm out of the door. I'm not here proclaiming or advocating for divorce. I'm just saying, what are people's non-negotiables that are explicitly shared or expressed so that you know that as soon as this thing happens, I'm out of here. These are very important things that need to be discussed. Trauma, my area or my specialty is trauma. So I know about trauma. I know how trauma shows up in our lives, shows up in our marriages, shows up everywhere. If it's not treated, if you're sick, if you have, let's say you're living with diabetes and you don't take your medications, you're going to be sick. You are going to experience hypos. You might even experience gangrene. You'll experience all the implications of diabetes because you haven't taken care of it. Trauma, you may not physically see trauma. Trauma can be invisible, but the impact of trauma is the same as not taking care of a physical illness. It shows up. It spills wherever you go. It touches on everything. And the more you avoid it, the more it gets cemented and the worse it becomes. And those triggers come up in every situation. Let's take somebody that was sexually abused before marriage. They haven't taken care of that. They haven't resolved it. They haven't processed it. They haven't healed from it. They go into a marriage. Marriage comes with everything. Intimacy. Intimacy, pardon. When I say intimacy, there are many different types of intimacy. I'm specifically talking about sexual intimacy.
Okay.
The person who has been sexually abused may have trauma around sexual intimacy. That's now a problem. That's a big problem. It's part of the marriage, part of the package. But if I haven't taken care of it and put it at a good place, that's going to be a big problem. That's trauma. So trauma is not only in the finances, in the infidelities, it's in every area of your life that can negatively impact the marriage relationship.
Wow. Very, very solid points you raised. Elvis, I'll come to you in a moment, Aaron. Elvis, in terms of transparency and working together, is there a cultural context within which this works? Because a lot of the time when you talk to people who have had Western exposure, for the lack of a better description, they talk about financial transparency and financial intimacy from the point of we operate a joint account. Joint account, I don't know, but you know, is there a cultural context that makes it prevalent in other jurisdictions more than it does here in Ghana?
I believe even in this part of the world, some people do have joint account and they have that level of transparency. At the end of the day, is creating a deeper understanding. And I believe why people sometimes want to do their own thing, we've all talked about, is that element of fear. Fear of not knowing what might come up. Fear of what if tomorrow I am told that I am out of the door, what am I going to do financially? But we encourage the notion of transparency in terms of creating a joint account. Having a joint account really gives a different way of looking at things. For an example, you all have to have your own individual accounts and you have the joint account. The income comes straight to the joint account and you create the budget, and within the budget everyone will have their own monies that will go into their individual account. So say for example, if you are going to have a haircut or you're going to buy some clothes or things, you know you have your own money in your account. We always advocate, like I will always encourage the men, give women more because they have some miscellaneous expenditure that men we don't have. So if you decide to blow all your money in 2 days, you have to wait till the end of the month. Don't go dipping your hands in the joint account, because that is where the utility bills come from and the rent and school fees, etc. So I know this part of the world, how it has been also is people bringing their own scripts into the relationship. Growing up, they saw their parents doing individual thing, and footing all the bills, maybe that doing it. So people will come into the relationship with the script that they have known. What we encourage is that as you go through the premarital to prepare, talk about all of these things. That how are we going to do it? Are we going for joint accounts? Are we going for individual accounts? How are we going to do it? At the end of the day, transparency in the beginning would create something meaningful for both of you. I want to also bring this in that let us be open to a new way of thinking, a new way of doing things. All of us have had those BlackBerry phones before and those flip-flop phones before. But now if you ask people, do you prefer using a smartphone or do you prefer using all those old phones? People will tell you, hey, I have a smartphone, because those old phones did not have the platform to have the apps, social media apps and stuff on it. So unfortunately, some of us, our minds are like the old BlackBerry phones. We want to subscribe to it because we want things to work in our advantage, but not in the relationship or the family advantage. So let us renew using those smartphones so that we can put the apps of creating healthy communication, the apps of conflict resolution, the art of roles and responsibilities, the art of financial intimacy, the act of spiritual intimacy, and the act of everything else that would make the relationship work.
Great. Aaron. Hi, Aaron.
Hello, Insha.
Thank you. So I want to come to you from a man's perspective, and I haven't heard all the submissions. If you place this within the context of the society we live in, you often hear men complain about, oh yeah, and I'm carrying all the load. And do you think that men feel confident enough to say, Charlie, chick, this thing I do, I know they sit up. I need help?
Well, I would agree much more with Madame in the studio, and also to
Ruth.
a very large extent, yes, to say in the studio. First thing we must agree on is that every human being is a human being, irrespective of whether the person is a male or female. That person's positives, that person's negatives are valid. A man goes through trauma. A man goes through everything a woman can think of. I always have a problem when we overstate the woman factor in the society. It is what makes other men also feel that then we are not going to bargain. First, you are a human being, you are a male, you are a human being, you are a female, you are a human being. Until we look at the additions that comes to us. It is why on my first submission, I stated that all these conversations we are talking about could have been resolved, or say almost resolved, when we actually had a very frank and open discussion before entering into the relationship. Granted, it is a relationship we hurriedly entered into. Just as Ruth said in the video, the pre-engagement, the counseling you go through before entering marriage is one key thing that we should all not joke with. Chief, I believe that when we take our time and go through the process over there, you get to know that love would not only, if I'm not mistaken, because I'm not married, love would not only be the sufficient factor to sustain a marriage. It's about considering all the holistic view and all the other factors that contribute to our very existence. And when we put all those things together, then we should be able to resolve that, yes, this thing I'm entering into is going to help me. The other thing I'm entering into is not going to help me, amongst all those things. I mean, looking at our cultural aspects, technically men might feel very difficult to come out of the shelf to complain and others. But if we continue with our continuous education, speaking out and doing all these things, it is going to help shape the society we all come from. So basically, that is what I think, Insha.
No, so Aaron, are you saying that men should speak up more? Would you encourage your friends to speak up more when they feel burdened?
Yes, please. You see, to even prevent, the society would even perceive you in a certain light. To prevent that, then get the early stages right. But if you don't get it right and you are in, you should be encouraged to speak up, because you end up killing yourself before even the time for your barrier. And that is why we should encourage people to speak up, but more importantly, get the basis right.
Now, you're talking very heavily about the basis, and I've got Fritz joining me in a moment, and I need to get... Fritz says he doesn't have a girlfriend, which is fine. I know that he's just not mustered enough courage to speak to that one that he has seen, and we'll get to that in a moment. But Fritz, if listening to the conversation so far, does this give you the confidence that you could follow a certain blueprint, and in spite of whatever challenges you come, do you now feel you have enough to go on and take that giant leap?
Well, the giant leap, I will take it. But there was something, Ruth and anyone was saying that, I want to react to. Sometimes the reason why women want to preserve what they have, which is why they will say what is mine, is the fact that when the men realize that the women tend to grow financial muscle, they begin to renege on their responsibility. So if the woman say, for instance, I'm going to take care of these bills in the house, I'm going to provide for the children, I'm going to pay their fees, and the men realize that, okay, the woman is doing the heavy liftings, then they tend to turn their attention somewhere, which is what is normalizing what Inimwa said, that, the side chick for the men. So sometimes the men are unresponsible for the woes that come into the house. So if your woman is growing a financial muscle, yours is supposed to be there for her, be responsible and help her. Don't say that because she's providing and doling out the money, that is an easy way for you to, pump your resources elsewhere. So sometimes, the men are responsible for that as well. They bring it upon themselves.
Can I respond to this?
Yes.
We go back to the one account. When we go into marriage, we don't go into marriage as I. The I becomes we.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe it's a North America or European ideology, and maybe this is a question for Aaron. Where I come from, when I go into marriage, if I'm going to the marriage with a debt, that becomes our debt. When I go into marriage with asset, that becomes our assets, whether I like it or not. He is responsible for mine. I'm responsible for his. And that is why it's so important that we have to have those conversations before we go in. so that you come in fully aware of what you're walking into. Now that becomes a problem when I keep that to myself. I mean, we had a situation where a couple who were getting married didn't have that conversation. After marriage, they realized that the man didn't have any debt. In fact, the only debt the man had was $18 on his credit card. Probably the interest that he hadn't paid off. The woman, on the other hand, had, I don't know, how much was it? Like over 100,000 in debt. Because she had to pay for her university fees, whereas the man had support from the parents, so he didn't have any debt. But she didn't tell him before they got married. Now they're in the marriage. This comes out. That's a big debt for him to shoulder as well. What do? He can either walk away and say, no, I didn't bargain for this. You weren't truthful. Or he can say, well, you know, for better or for worse, in sickness and health, for richer or for poorer. Your debt is now my debt. Let's sit down together and plan how we're going to pay it off. If I'm working and Elvis is not working, we have this situation. You know, we moved from England to Canada. Within 2 years of getting jobs, both of us getting jobs, buying a house, we both lost our jobs. No job. Both of us, for the first time in our lives, were sitting at home, not working. I got a job. I was able to work. Elvis was at home. Do I now say that money that I'm bringing is my money? Or is it our money to take care of the mortgage, to take care of the children? So if you don't have the mindset of we're going in as we, but I'm going in as I, there's a problem. Just because we're we doesn't mean I lose my I, my identity. I am still I, but in the context of the marriage, we are we. I don't lose myself. I still operate as Ruth. I still do things. I still have friends and all of that stuff. But in the marriage, we're we.
But finally, before I make maybe quick and Shira comes in you know, saying what Inimwa said about side chicks, how it being celebrated in this country, which is why the women continuously, you know, reinforce what is mine is mine. How can we mitigate against that? That, you know, if society is not celebrating that, then the women will not have the opportunity to obviously what is mine is mine.
Are you saying that the Ghanaian society celebrates side chicks?
Yep.
Well,
who are the side chicks?
The extramarital affairs, okay?
Who are they? Are they male or female? Are we part of the problem? I'm a woman, right? So if I'm going to be a side chick, I'm not thinking about the woman in that marriage. I'm thinking about myself. So please don't shoot me. But are women selfish? Are we selfish? Are we only thinking about ourselves and our needs? If we didn't condone those behaviors will not continue. If I say to Elvis, you know, when we get married, the moment I see you talking to another girl, I'm out of here. That's already in his head. If he wants the relationship, then he'll try to preserve the relationship and he won't go. He won't see somebody else. But I'm also thinking, are you saying that because women are able to contribute financially, the man now thinks I have extra money to do extracurricular activities? Is that what you're saying? Because I'm not getting that concept. I don't understand why a man should think that as a helpmate, God told me as a woman, you're a helpmate to your husband. So if I'm helping my husband to build our family, ours, why would he now think that, okay, the extra money is okay for here, but my money is for outside? I don't get that point.
You know, we're running a poll on Facebook, Asasi 99.5, and that poll will be revealed during Cafe Extra with Caroline Sampson later this morning. But the question is simple. What keeps most modern relationships going these days? Is it genuine love and connection, financial support or survival, or fear of being alone? As a matter of fact, no one's voted yet for fear of being alone. And only a few have voted for genuine love and connection. Financial support and survival seem to be the lead consideration for people. Now, that said, Elvis, what happens to people who've already gone into a relationship, into marriage, didn't go through premarital therapy or counseling, and they find themselves in the middle of this ocean and they don't want to sink?
You see, if you break your leg, you want to see a physician, an orthopedic, that will support you to go through the healing process. And because you've broken your leg, everybody knows because it's visible. But when you are broken inside, nobody knows. Because people are fearful of leaving themselves vulnerable, for fear of maybe being ridiculed or for fear of people talking about them. And we do understand people that are in the ocean and they are battling because maybe of financial issues, get help, seek help. One thing is that when sometimes people are getting married, the elders will advise them, don't tell anyone, it's between you and your spouse. Well, that is a breeding grounds for abuse. Because people really believe in what they've been told. So if issues are going on, they can't reach out for therapy to know that, hey, just as we go to the physician or you go to your dentist to fix your tooth, let's go to a professional. Oftentimes in this part of the world, if people need help, they would naturally want to connect with their church pastor. But not all pastors, I want to stress that again, not all pastors are trained clinically to do therapy. There are some that are trained in there. So if you are a pastor, we appreciate your spiritual guidance, but when people come with deeper trauma issues, refer them to see a therapist that will support them. There are a lot of women that are currently in relationship that are going through financial abuse right now and emotional abuse. They are not being heard by their family members. Why? Because it's hidden, and they don't see how those insults and just firing those missiles and going through these traumatic moments. Help is available. Don't start sinking like Titanic because you are striking the iceberg of emotional abuse and the verbal and the mental and the spiritual abuse. Help is available. So if you are already in it and you are sinking, seek help. If you seek help and at the end of the day, we don't want anyone to really suffer in their relationship because they feel that they've been struggling together and help is not available. It is available. Seek help, and together you can achieve more.
So that's why we're here in Ghana and Africa, introducing Elpizo therapy so that people can get help. We've been hearing, since we've been here, confidentiality, there aren't enough counselors or enough therapists, there are too many rogue counselors out there. But there is help. Therapy really works. Therapy is not only for when I have a problem, but therapy is also to check my blind spots, to check that am I on the right path before I get into that accident. So therapy works. If people need therapy, let them call it therapy. We're here to help them virtually, and you don't have to come to a physical building. We'll do it online, so nobody knows. We can protect your anonymity. But also, let me add that we're doing a couples retreat.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yes, we're doing a couples retreat. In fact, this weekend in Yanyano, on Friday to Saturday.
Okay.
So the retreat is not to come and air your problems in public, but it's for us as couples to get together to learn some new ways of doing things. Like Elvis said, we have the traditional ways and the cultural ways as seeped in, but if we're saying that we want something better, it's not just women that want a good marriage or a healthy marriage. Men also want healthy marriages. Again, like Elvis said, none of us go to school to learn how to be married. Nobody does. We have a part of Elpizo is our marriage school, And marriage school teaches people how to be married, how to be in relationships. How do I learn? Some people don't even know that, having a joint account works, or this is how it works. How do we navigate that? How do we talk to each other? How are we open so we can understand each other and have these much needed conversations? Come to our couples retreat this weekend, and we will share together and learn together.
I like the sound of that, so you don't have a blueprint, but together you can learn from other people and learn from what works. Just before we wrap this up, let me go back to Aaron. Aaron, I think we lost Aaron, but we still have Enimwa on there. Enimwa, you've been on a roll with some of the points you've made. In fact, a comment coming from Facebook, Eracy says, thank you, Nimwa. There's also the woman who comes into the marriage with values that matter. How important is a woman's value system in making a relationship work, especially at a time that the man is overburdened by the responsibilities and life and its challenges, in making sure that the dynamic is one that promotes a healthy, respectful relationship, and one that they both thrive eventually? Any more? Do I have you on there? Hello? Okay, I think technology has decided that we stay in studio. All right, we'll definitely go back to them in a bit. But let's have a chat about the impact of unresolved trauma.
Sorry, let's go back to that same question.
Okay, how the woman.
Right.
Okay.
Do you remember the last time we were here?
Yeah, we talked about
support for men. We talked about vulnerability, and I remember saying that we as women, we can also create spaces so that men can be vulnerable and share and say, hey, I'm struggling, so can you help me? And like your caller or Eracy said, there are women who come into the marriage not wanting to take, but to support and give back. So we can't generalize that all women are bad or all men are bad. There are great men and there are great women who want to make their marriages work. So I do agree that I spoke to somebody recently who said, listen, I want to be in a relationship, I want to be married, I am working, I am independent, but the men are saying that they don't want that.
Okay.
You're too independent for me, or too financially independent. But the money I'm bringing into us together. So men also need to recreate or transform their mindset that not all women are coming. Yes, I understand there's women out there who want to take a whatever, but there's women of integrity, there's women who bring in a lot to the table that men need to appreciate and work together as a team. If I bring my 100% and you bring your 100%, we're going to win. But if I reserve some to the backer, then who am I reserving that one for?
Elvis, I think as we wrap this up,
you had asked about trauma.
Yes, unresolved trauma.
It's very, very painful. It's very, very painful. Just imagine having a smelly fish and your bed and you come in and you use the Febreze and you spray it. Guess what it will do? It will subside the smell a bit, and 1 hour later
you go out of the room and come back and you'll be waiting.
It is there. So the question is, how do you get rid of the smell? If you take the smelly fish out and you dispose it safely, that is what trauma is all about. That sometimes us living with our trauma, you have a cup, the cup is full, you walk around, guess what it's doing? It's spilling. But if you find a safe space and you talk and you resolve those trauma, you empty the cup, and when you walk, it is not spilling. So trauma is very destructive to our lives. Sometimes we carry it from childhood and we are not really much aware that this exists. And sometimes we grow up, we say we don't want to be like our dad and our mom, but we grow up, guess what we do? We are just like dad and mom. We never had the skills, tools to deal with things differently and go for therapy to resolve those trauma. So we would say that when you are going into a relationship, it is imperative that you talk about all of this. Say, for example, when we are doing our couple therapy and we find that trauma is in either of them, we pause couple therapy and we ask them to go for individual session to solve those trauma. Or else when you come into the marriage,
you're still gonna,
whether you like it or not, it will spill in and it will start being destructive.
Well, that's why I'm going to add my voice. I don't know if I could join you, but I'm beginning to see the importance of therapy. That's been established, but it's nice to also know that couples can have therapy together.
Oh, yes.
So join the couples retreat with Elvis and Ruth. If you're a couple, whether you had premarital therapy or counseling, or you went in and you started on your own and you now need to get some support. I think that nobody lives a life where they know and learn everything.
And going into therapy doesn't mean you have a problem. The best time to go to therapy is when you don't have a problem and things are working well. Why? Because prevention is better than cure.
Very, very well spoken. So I'm guessing anyone interested can go to elpizo.com.
Yes, elpizotherapy.com.
Okay, elpizotherapy.com.
Or you can call on 054 303 1583 to contact me to get the registration. It is a paid
it's a paid event.
It's a paid event.
Okay.
It's a paid retreat. So don't show up without registering.
Reach out and
reach
register.
Out, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's at the Big Blue Resort in Yanyano.
Okay, yeah, I know that place.
Are there any discounts?
There are discounts. If you call me, we'll discuss the discounts. Yes.
Yeah,
Are
great
you
stuff.
planning on coming, Fritz? With your wife?
Special one.
with the invisible
wife.
invisible.
I have got a nice, delicious one for you, Fritz. See me after. Yes.
Good.
Thank you so much.
I'm loving the sound of that. But thank you very much to you, Elvis and Ruth Bajabi, registered psychotherapists and clinical supervisors and trainers at El Piso Counseling Services. We've also had Enimado, a media personality, and Aaron Esiedwentry, who's a law student with a great deal of interest in family issues and the founder of the Law Lab. You've all made this conversation a very important one, and very exciting and revelatory. Grateful to you both and to the two who joined us on the Zoom.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe.